So, check this out, people. Today is Wednesday in the Metro Manila area in the Philippines, and it is 100 degrees. It is so hot. Just last week, 19 cars caught fire at the Ninoy International Airport in Manila. It's so hot that the grass in the parking area caught fire, and the fire spread and took over 19 cars. And if you see, you can see how bad the damage was and how bad this fire was. Now, it's been 100 degrees for the past week, and it's going to be 100 degrees for the next upcoming week. So much so that they suspended school for the next couple of days. And they've been suspending school every now and then since we've reached these temperatures. And so, one of the things I like about this country is this. In the US, lawyers always tell people never to admit fault, right? Doesn't matter whose fault it is. It could be your fault, it could be someone else's fault. And major companies like the Ninoy International Airport here in Manila, compared to major companies in the US, when there is an accident or there is an issue where damages are incurred because of negligence or accidents, lawyers are always advising people never to take responsibility, never to admit fault to anything. And that is the downfall of the US, is that a lot of these major companies, instead of doing things out of good faith, they just deny, and deny, regardless of whose fault it is. Now, here you have a natural disaster caused by nature, nobody's fault. It's not the driver's fault, it's not the customer's fault who parked at the international airport in Manila. It's not the airport's fault that the heat caused the fire. It's no one's fault. And the airport, Ninoy International Airport, doesn't have to be responsible for anybody's damages. Yet, because of good faith, according to them, and in the spirit of godliness, they are going to shoulder the expenses and pay for all of the 19 cars that were damaged while on their property. Now, this just goes to show you what real freedom is. When you have the freedom to do what's right, when you have the freedom to choose right over wrong, and when you have the freedom to take on responsibility even when it's not your problem or your issue. But the cars were parked on Ninoy's property, and so they took it upon themselves to be responsible and pay for these cars. Now, back home in the US, no one will take responsibility. If you don't have insurance, it's your problem. And if you do have insurance, then that's the insurance company's problem. And one of the things I've learned since I've left the US, and one of the things that I recommend to Americans, is leave the US for 1 month. Don't go to Mexico for your vacation. Don't go to Florida. Don't go to Puerto Rico. Leave the continent so you can see what real freedom is. Because the US, though it's a great country and I love my country, they continue to lie to us when they tell us that we're free and that we are the most free country in the world and that we have more freedom than anybody, when in reality, that is not true. I've lived in the Philippines for a year now, and I've traveled back and forth for the past 5 or 6 years. And I find that there's more freedom here than there is in the US. The government actually controls prices so that the people aren't burdened with high prices. And so they keep prices at a certain level, unlike in the US, where independent sellers can charge $8 for eggs, as much as they want for rice, pasta, milk, and what have you. But here it's not like that. And here, the government and those people who are in high places who believe in God and trust in God and who are Christians, and based on their faith, this is why they do the things they do. This is why they're kind, not just to each other, but to those around them. And unfortunately, in the US, we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our religion, our faith. We've turned from God because of our freedom. We're so free that we don't need God in our lives. And this is why the country is falling apart. Meanwhile, you have a third world country like the Philippines, whose government treats their people as kindly as possible because they believe in God and they believe that what goes around comes around. They're actually involved and interested in their people's welfare. And yes, there's a lot of poverty here. This country is a third world country. But if you live here or if you visit here, you will see how people are treated, how kind people are. And though there's evil everywhere you go, I find that there's more evil in the US. The US is not a safe country to live. It hasn't been a safe country to live as long as I've been alive, and I've lived in the US all my life. And I've lived in the Philippines now for a year. It's one of the safest countries I visited. I've never felt unsafe, no matter what time of the day or night it is. And so, for people who want to experience something new and what real freedom is, where you can open up a business and where you can grow and where the government doesn't get involved with what it is you're trying to do when you're just trying to feed your family, and how they don't make it difficult for you to open a business or to become a street vendor because the government here knows that people have to eat. The government here, and not just the government, but those in high positions, they're interested in the quality of life for their people. And so here you have Ninoy International Airport, whose responsibility isn't to pay for anybody's property that was damaged on their property, but because of good faith, according to them, and their belief in God, they believe that the right thing to do is to pay for these people's property so they can go ahead and get on with their lives. And so they've already contacted these 19 people whose cars were damaged. They contacted them in writing and offered to pay for their vehicles. See the difference? It doesn't matter whether or not they have insurance. It doesn't matter whether or not they're able to pay for it. In the US, no one wants to take responsibility for anything. And that's something I've never understood as a kid. I never understood it as a kid, and as a grown up, I still don't understand why someone in a higher position than everyone else, when something happens on their property, they just can't say, hey, I'm sorry this happened to you on my property. I will take care of it. I will make sure that you can get to work on time. I will make sure that you can take your kids to school and to the hospital if necessary. Instead, they deny, deny, deny because that's what we're taught to do. And this is why the US, unfortunately, is falling apart. Come to the Philippines, people, so you can experience what real freedom is.